today we're going to be talking about how to get paid as a broker and how to protect yourself. And there's a couple different things that we want to be aware of in this whole scenario. So one thing we want to be aware of is when we're dealing with just us and a buyer and us and a seller. The other is when other brokers come into the equation, other pilots come into the equation, other people come into the equation that kind of, they may or may not need to get paid. So let's talk about first when you're dealing with a buyer or seller. So first and foremost, obviously, if you're dealing with a seller, the goal is to get a listing agreement. That way, if I sell the plane, you will pay me X amount of dollars. Super simple. The other way to go about that sometimes though is the seller might not want to pay a broker. That will happen from time to time. And in that case, you've got two options. You can either say to the guy, okay, well, listen, I'm going to go put this off market. Will you give me an off market listing? And so you can do a listing agreement, like an exclusive agreement that just says off market, that says, okay, I won't publish it on controller, but I'll do, give me 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, give me a week. Maybe the guy's thinking about selling it and he's willing to give you a week. So you can use the exclusive listing agreement for a shortened period of time and limit it to just off market stuff where he never sees it on controller, or you agree that you'll take off the tail number for everything. That's another way to do it. Sometimes they don't even want to do that. They're just like, well, bring me a buyer. Great. So in that situation, anything you send to an end user, and especially anything you send to a broker, you want to make sure the tail number is removed. You want to make sure the serial number is removed. You got to take it off the pictures. You got to take it off the cockpit photos because sometimes there's a tail number there. You try to remove it from maintenance reports, although that gets really hairy. So usually I won't send a maintenance report unless either I really know the broker, somebody that I trust, or I just send them the basic specs. Like, here's the time for overhaul. Here, like I was sending my spec sheet. We've gone over what that looks like so that there's no identifying marks on there. And the reason we do that is because if it's a professional or if it's an end user who can get access, they can go directly to the seller themselves and be like, hey, like, I want to buy your plane. Let's not pay Tom, and everyone saves some money. And some people like that. That's why the whole point of this conversation is how do you get paid and how do you make sure you don't get screwed. The second thing you can do, so after you send it, so what I normally do is I say, hey, Mr. Seller, will you sell your planes? Like, yeah, but if you get me a buyer, great. Hey, Mr. Buyer, I've got a plane. It's a 1990 late 1990s, 6,000 hours on the airframe. It's got 1,000 hours remaining on the engine. It's got the Garmin upgrades, the dual G750s, G600s. He's thinking, doesn't really have a price, but he's thinking like somewhere in the $2 million range. Like, is that of interest to you? And the buyer's like, yeah, sure. Okay, great. Pause. Now, when you ask the seller if he's willing to pay, if he's open to putting it off market, you should ask the seller then, hey, will you pay me a commission? And if he says yes, then okay, you're going to get paid on the seller side. And you should have that conversation like, well, my commission is usually 6% or 4%, whatever it is. Like, get that kind of verbally, like, will you pay this commission? And then you'll have an idea. And so you try to secure it on the seller side. So you're representing the seller. So when it comes time for the buyer to be like, yes, I'm interested in this plane, then you go back, hey, Mr. Seller, I've got a buyer. Okay. I want to make this formal that you will pay me a commission. So I'm going to send you a one-page commission agreement. You're going to see who the buyer is. You're going to see what my commission is amount. And you're only going to pay me if we go through with this particular buyer, this particular deal. If he says yes, and then he signs it, boom, now the floodgates are open. It's a normal deal. Send the buyer anything that they want to know because you're protected now. You've got the sheet of paper that says if John Smith sells it to Bob Jones, then you get paid and you're protected now. Now, if the seller won't pay a commission and you get that up front, you should have this conversation up front. Then you go back to the buyer and be like, hey, listen, I got an aircraft for you. The seller's not willing to pay a commission. Are you open to paying my commission? And then you have that conversation there. And if the buyer says, no, I'm not willing to make a commission, then you're like, okay, fine. Okay, you don't like it. Then you let everybody know, like, okay, I'm going to have to make this up in a spread. And not that you go publicizing this, but it's just kind of like a known factor now. So you're going to have, basically what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go to the seller and say, hey, Mr. Seller, okay, what's your price? Because I'm going to have to get paid, through a spread. And then you just let him know, like he'll tell you, the seller will usually tell you, I want $2 million and you can have anything above $2 million. Okay, now there's your spread. And that's basically how you'll do the spread. Now you can do this fully transparent and then put it in the agreement that says, hey, Tom gets anything over $2 million. The problem with that obviously is if it goes in the pre-buy and then there's squawks and you let's say you're going to make $100,000 and then there's squawks and they have to reduce the price by $100,000. Now you get paid nothing. That's kind of the problem there. But You can be fully transparent there. And so what happens is the buyer puts in a buy price for, 2.1, and then the seller knows, okay, well, 100 grand's going to Tom and I'm taking 2 million. Or you can do it where, we find an intermediary company that puts it under contract at 2 million, and then we turn around and we say to the buyer, hey buyer, he's willing to sell it for $2.2 million. That includes my commission. Sorry, 2.1, that includes my commission. And then the buyer pays 2.1, and then you take the spread, the $100,000 spread in there. But you've told the seller, like, hey, I'm going to sell this for more. And you've told the buyer, hey, you're buying it for this price. It includes my commission. And then they get to choose if that's how they want to proceed forward or not. So that's how you would get paid in that kind of a deal. Again, the most important thing is that you have something in writing that says how you're going to get paid before you start sending specs. It's not the end of the world to share specs, before having all that, but it looks like that's how it looks like. By the way, this is live, Alex, so it says recording, but I'm talking. Um, and let's talk about when there's another broker involved. So if you have a listing or you have an off-market aircraft and you're having a conversation with a broker or a pilot or somebody else in the industry, but they're not the person that's going to buy the aircraft, they represent somebody, or they got a guy that needs the aircraft, just have the conversation early on with that person. Hey, how do you need to get paid? Or, hey, how are you getting paid in this deal? Or, hey, do you need me to make room in this? Or, hey, how are you covered? I want to make sure everybody gets covered in this transaction. And they're pretty straightforward for the most part. Like, they'll tell you, like, okay, I'm getting paid from the seller, or I'm getting paid by the guy, or no, I'm the management company, so I'm just helping him, and I'll get paid on the back end when we end up managing this aircraft for him. Or, hey, I'm the pilot, I'm on salary. This is part of my job. He asked me to go find a plane for him. So don't be afraid to have that conversation. Don't be afraid to ask that question. How are you getting paid? And people will tell you. Just be very frank with them, upfront and professional, and I think it'll work out well for you. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at in terms of how to get paid. You guys have any questions before I wrap up the recording? Just to make sure that everyone's on the same page. So again, if you're dealing with two end users, a buyer and seller directly to you, just make sure you have a signed piece of paper from one of them that says that they're going to pay you. If you're dealing with a broker or a pilot, management company, whatever, just ask them, how are you getting paid? How can I make room in this deal for you? And sometimes they'll ask you to split your commission. Sometimes they will ask you for a cut, 10 grand, 50 grand. If they just say, no, I just need a little something, get them to give you an answer. All right, how much do you need? Oh, well, like, I don't know, just whatever you think. No, 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 I don't, that's not how I work. I need to know exactly how much you want. Well, 50 grand. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, that's fine. But, understand, like, there's only 50 grand of commission in here, so we can't, I can't give you everything. So how about 10 grand? Because all you're doing is bringing the guy to me. Or how about 25, because you're getting the deal across the line. We're doing 50-50 work. So don't be afraid to have that conversation. Okay. And don't just let them take control of the conversation. So with that, that's how we get paid. And if you have any other questions, I definitely highly encourage you to check out the Circle community. Go to circle.jetlifearrow.com, and we'll catch you later.